We're doing another cross-country collab trip on US 23. Come on, let's go! Alright everyone, today I'm doing another collab video, this time with my good friend the Xavier 456, and we're doing US Highway 23 northbound for the University of Michigan. He is going to be doing the northern half of the highway while I'll be doing the southern half. And US Highway 23 is another cross-country highway, so yeah, this will be pretty interesting to see how well it is signed across the states that it travels. So let's get started with this collab highway. But first, you're watching TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of US Highway 23 as it runs from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to Mackinaw City, Michigan. And the blue part here is the part that the Xavier 456 has been on, while I've only seen the highway in person in 3 separate cities, because I haven't really been on it. So with that, we're going to be talking about northbound US 23. So we begin here in Jacksonville, Florida, where we begin on US Highway 17. And FDOT was actually pretty nice to give us a begin US 23 shield. Yay. Anyways, up the road, US 17 is splitting off from us. It's going to be joining with Interstate 95. But we're going to be staying straight here to head towards US 1. Here we are merging into US Highway 1 on this one-lane road here. Anyways, up the road, we're actually meeting with Interstate 295, and it gets to control cities of St. Augustine and Savannah. And let's see what we're signed for on 295. I mean, Callahan's an alright choice, but prefer to see maybe both Callahan and Folkston. But still, like I said, Callahan's an alright choice because it's where we meet US 301 and Florida Highway A1A. In our first mileage time, we get Hilliard on the bottom line at 20 miles away. No, FDOT is being provincial here because Hilliard is literally the last town in the state of Florida. This should be Folkston. Here in Callahan, we're meeting with US 301 along with Florida Highway A1A. And if you want to check out a cool video on Florida A1A made by me, it's in the top right corner here. In our next mileage time, we get Folkston as our primary from 24 miles away. Yay. And then here in Hilliard, we get another mileage time. We get Jessup now as our primary from 52 miles away. So they're actually favoring US 301 here, while giving us our own control of Waycross. We're now entering into the state of Georgia here, and let us see what Georgia has to offer on US 23. And we get our first mileage and we get Waycross as our bottom line, so good job, GDOT. Here is where US 301 splits off from us, and we're now still signed for Waycross as 301 is now signed for Jessup. And our first mileage time after splitting off from 301, we get Waycross as our top line and Black's Hair as our bottom line at 36 miles away. No, Black's Hair is not even on US 1 and 23. It's actually on US Highway 84. Plus, it's ridiculously smaller than Waycross, so I personally argue just have Waycross as a one-liner here. No needs for Black's Hair. Here in Waycross, we're meeting with US Highway 82, and we're going to become concurrent with it as we head through the city. And then here in Waycross, we get a mileage time with where neither US 1 and 23 go, but both US 82 and 84. So these are pretty awesome cities. Good job, GDOT. Now we're meeting with US 84, and we're going to come concurrent with it as we head bypass the city. And here's where we split off from US 82 and 84, and we're now signed for Alma. I mean, it's an alright choice. For our next mileage time, we get Hazelhurst on the bottom line at 41 miles away. That's a town where US 23 is going by itself because we're going to be splitting off from US 1 in Alma. And here in Alma, we get a pretty cool sequential fields here. US 1, 2, 3, and then Georgia Highway 4. Here's where Georgia 19 and US 23 splits off from us, and no, that is not an error shield, that is actual Georgia Highway 19. And once we split off from US Highway 1, we get our first mileage sign. We get Hazelhurst on the top line and Lumber City on the bottom line. You know what the population of Lumber City is? It's only 930 people, which is ridiculously smaller than Hazelhurst. If you want to sign something besides Hazelhurst, how about do McRae Helena, not Lumber City? Why in the world are you doing this, G-Dot? Here in Hazelhurst, we're meeting with US Highway 341, and oh boy, we have an error alert here, as G-Dot mistakenly calls US 23 Georgia Highway 23. And then here's where 23 and 441 meets US 221, which is signed Tallahassee Street, which is pretty awesome. And our next mileage time, we get McRae Helena as our primary. And for some random reason, G-Dot is actually listing it as two separate places, when in reality, it's actually one big city. They formed in 2015, so I'm guessing that G-Dot has never came around and fixed this mileage sign. Here in McRae Helena, we're meeting with US 280 and 319 and 441, and we're now signed for Eastman, which is a good choice. And then next mileage time, we get Eastman on the top line and Cochrane as our primary from 38 miles away. I think I agree with that because Cochrane is roughly the same size as Eastman. And this is where US 23 splits off from US Highway 341. And oh boy, Georgia has made another error. So they have the correct shields on this overhead line here, but on the ground they have an error. Georgia, why do you keep making so much error shields? You're like the king of error shields here in the southeast. Anyways, our next mileage time, we get Macon as our primary. Wow, that's awesome, G-Dot. Here on the outskirts of Macon, we're meeting with Interstate 16 here, and sadly we have no control cities for it. And here we are meeting with US Highway 80, and we're going to become concurrent with it as we head towards Macon. Here in Macon, we're meeting with US Highway 129, and we're going to become concurrent with it as we head through downtown Macon. Here we are crossing over the Ocmulgee River, and we have a overhead for Interstate 16, which will take you over to Interstate 75. Here we are splitting off from US Highway 129 in front of this checkers here, and US 23 is going to now be continuing north towards Atlanta. Here we are meeting Interstate 75 as we're going to be paralleling it as we head towards Atlanta. And what? We need it a second time! And it's getting signed for Atlanta, which I think is a good choice because 75 is the fastest way to Atlanta here. US 23 should get the smaller towns. And then we get a one-liner here for Jackson, which is 31 miles away. Here in Jackson, we meet with Georgia Highway 16. And do you see this mileage sign in the distance over here? Well, it's a really ridiculous one because I have never seen anything like it. All the letters are like ridiculously spaced out. Like, how does that not bother people? But our next mileage sign for us, we get McGonadew on our bottom line at 17 miles away. And then in McDonough, we get another mileage sign, and this time it's a Georgia dyslexic one again. And we get Decatur as our primary on the top line at 28 miles away. Here in the outskirts of Atlanta, we're meeting with Interstate 675, which just gets controls of Macon and 285. And then here we are meeting Interstate 285 here on the outskirts of Atlanta. And then here we are meeting Interstate 20, which gets signed for Birmingham and Augusta. But, I mean, that makes sense because we are technically within, like, the city limits or close to downtown Atlanta. In fact, I actually got my very own picture of the exit here, which is actually awesome. And then here we are meeting with US 78 and 278 here in the heart of Atlanta. And then now we're splitting off from that as we're now going to be joining with Georgia Highway 155. Here we are meeting Interstate 85, and sadly this time I did not get my own picture of this because here we are meeting Interstate 285 on the north side of the city. And here we can see that we have the teeny tiny shield once again. But on the ground here we have US 23 regular size. So what's the deal with the tiny shield, G-Dot? Here we are in northern Georgia, and we're now meeting with Interstate 985. We're going to be concurrent with it for the rest of its length. And then this is at the very northern end of the highway, and we're meeting with US 129. And we're going to be concurrent with it as it's signed for Gainesville and Cleveland. And here's that exit for 129 north. And then after leaving 985, we get our first mileage time with Clayton on the bottom line at 51 miles away. Good job, G-Dot. And then here we are meeting with a road that will take you over to US 441, as 441 is now going to become concurrent with us here. And then here we meet one of the two child routes of US Highway 23, US 123, and it's signed north for Toccoa and Livonia, and we're now signed for Clarksville and Clayton. And here US 23 gets some stunning scenery. I bet this is actually very pretty in the fall time. And the next mileage time we get Mountain City on the bottom line. Again, Mountain City is like a ridiculously small town. Why in the world is it getting billing over Clayton? You know what should be signed instead of Mountain City? Franklin, North Carolina? That is way bigger than Mountain City. G-Dot, what is wrong with your obsessions of 900-person town being signed as primaries? This has to stop. Here in Clayton, we're meeting with US Highway 76, the good old friend US 76, and if you want to check out a video on US 76, it's in the top right corner here. Here is where US 76 splits off from us, and let us see what we're signed for on 76. Oh, we're now signed for Franklin, which is a good choice. Why wasn't it on that previous mileage time we saw earlier, G-Dot? And always up the road after passing through Mountain City and other towns, we are now entering into the state of North Carolina. Oh boy, I wonder what North Carolina has to offer for us today. What? 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 This is awesome! This is a rare NC.W. NC.W is like literally pulling the big guns right as we enter into the state, and we're being signed for Asheville from 79 miles away. Like I said, this is awesome, NC.W. Congrats! Here in Franklin, we're meeting with US Highway 64, and we're going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Sylvia and Cherokee. And this is where US 64 splits off from it, as it's going to be joining with North Carolina Highway 28, as it's signed for Highlands and Franklin. And then the next mileage time we get Waynesville as our primary. I mean, Waynesville is still an alright choice, but personally I'd love to see that Asheville come back. Hey, look at that! When we meet US 74, it does come back, and we're going to be concurrent with US 74 for a short time. And then our next mileage time, we get Asheville as our primary once again. Good job, NC.Dot. Here we meet US Highway 276, and it's signed south for Waynesville and Brevard, as it will take you over to US 64. And this is where US 19 is going to be merging into us, and we're going to be concurrent with US 19 for a short time. And I'm actually going to be making my own US 19 series here in a couple weeks, but in the meantime, check out Quartermatch's US 19 series in the top right corner here. Here is where US 19 and 23 splits off from US 74, as we're assigned for Clyde and Canton, because the fastest way to Asheville from here is US 74 to Interstate 40. Here in the outskirts of Asheville, we're meeting with Interstate 40, and I'm glad we don't have any control cities right now, because we all know that they'll be terrible. But guess what? Interstate 40 is the, hey, I know this highway. Interstate 40 is roughly 2,556 miles that run through 8 states, and it runs from Barstow, California, all the way over to Wilmington, North Carolina. Personally, I've been on the last 662 miles of the interstate from Nashville, Tennessee, all the way over to Wilmington, North Carolina. It has children highways in 4 of its 8 states, mainly east of Texas, and it's also the 3rd longest interstate in the entire country. And oh boy, does NC do horribly on Interstate 40. But Interstate 40 does also go through some pretty scenery here in the state of North Carolina. So that's a little bit about Interstate 40, and let us get back to US Highway 23. Here still in Asheville, we're now going to become concurrent with Interstate 240, and we're now signed for Weaverville. Once Interstate 26 actually becomes an interstate through the city, I prefer to see Johnson City instead of that Weaverville, please. And this is where we split off from Interstate 240, as we're signed for UNC Asheville and Weaverville. No, like I said, that should become Johnson City once 26 gets signed. And I'm going to actually be skipping this portion because I actually covered my own version of Interstate 26, and you can check that out in the top right corner here. And then while on Interstate 26, we enter into the state of Tennessee. And at the very end of Interstate 26, US 23 actually continues north into Virginia here. And for some random reason, US 23 is named the Country Music Highway. I'm confused by that because I've never heard of any country songs that mention US Highway 23. In our first mileage sign here in Virginia, we get Gate City as our top line, Big Stone Gap as our secondary, and Jenkins as our primary. Okay, here's where I have trouble with this. Jenkins is only like roughly 2,000 people. Personally, I would not like to see it being signed from 70 miles away. I prefer to just have a 2-liner here with just Big Stone Gap, because Big Stone Gap is roughly the same size but a little bigger, but it's alright to be signed from only 30 miles away, compared to Jenkins, which is being signed from 70 miles away. Here in Gate City, we're meeting with US Highway 58 and 421 in front of this awesome mountain here. This is actually the thumbnail title screen here. And this is where US 58 and 421 splits off from us, and this is the last time we're going to be seeing these 2 highways, unless Control City Freak or any of my other friends make their own versions of US 58 and 421. Here we get another mileage sign, and we're still getting Jenkins as our primary from 40 miles away. Here in Big Stone Gap, we're meeting with US 58 alternate, and 58 alternate is going to become current with us as we head towards Jenkins and Wise. And here is where US 58 alternate splits off from us as it heads towards Abingdon. The next mileage sign, we get Wise as our top line, and then we still get Jenkins from 20 miles away. How about something in Kentucky, maybe like Pikeville, or you can sign Ashland from here, which is pretty awesome. But anything but Jenkins now. But our next mileage sign, we get Pikeville from 39 miles away. That's a good job by Virginia. And the ways up the road, we're now entering into the state of Kentucky. Oh boy. Here in Kentucky, our first major junction is US Highway 119, and we're now signed north for Jenkins and Pikeville. Here is the town of Jenkins, and it actually has a pretty cool plaque here, so that's awesome. In our next mileage sign in Kentucky, we get Paintsville as our primary from 66 miles away. That's, I believe, where US 460 splits off from us. And here's where US 460 is going to be joining with us as we head towards Paintsville and Ashland. And here's where US 119 splits off from us. In our next mileage time, we get Prestonburg as our top line and Paintsville as our primary at 37 miles away. And this is where US 460 splits off from us as it's signed for Slayersville and Paintsville. And we're going to be taking a little bit more at 460 in the upcoming year, so stay tuned for that. And next mileage time, we get Louisa on the top line, Cattlesburg as our secondary, and we finally get signed for Ashland. Yay, Kentucky. And then here, we actually are right next to US Highway 52, but on the Kentucky side of the Big Sandy River. And then here we meet Interstate 64, and like I said in my Springfield trip video, I actually got to see this exit in person, but I did not able to get a picture of it because I was charging my phone from taking a lot of pictures in West Virginia. And then here in Ashland, we're meeting with US Highway 60, and US 60 West is going to be concurrent with us here. And then here in downtown Ashland, US 60 is splitting off from us, and it'll take you over to US 52. But US 23 is now going to be continuing north towards the Ohio border. And then on our way to the Ohio border, we meet with Kentucky Highway 1, which will take you over to Kentucky Route 9, which is the most exciting state highway ever. Whoa. And here's where US 23 crosses over the Ohio River into Portsmouth, Ohio. And this is where I'm going to be turning it over to the Xavier 456, who'll be covering the rest of US Highway 23 in the states of Ohio and Michigan. So take it away, my friend.
We now cross into the state of Ohio over the Ohio River. And this street view imagery just shows the old sign. Part of it all is what we have currently. And this one just says find it here. Here in downtown Portsmouth, we are meeting with US 52. We don't get any signage here. All we get are these overheads for just west and east. And we are also getting an overhead for north 23, right in the center. Here's our first mileage sign that ODOT gives us, and we get Waverly on the top line and Columbus on the bottom line, 86 miles away. Good stuff, ODOT. I like it. And it continues to hold up as we get Chillicothe on the top line at 15 miles, and Columbus is still holding up at 60. When we enter Chillicothe, we meet with US 50, and we can also see that there's 2 East 35 shield on there. That is an easy way to connect to that. Although 50 is just getting a Kentucky treatment of Eastern Avenue here. I don't like that. I want to see an eastbound control city on there, like Athens, because that's where Ohio University is. And North 23 is getting pulled through to West 35 and is signed for Columbus and Dayton, 2 of Ohio's major cities. Love to see it. And here we get an exit to US 50 West, and it is just Main Street and Chillicothe, because this is the exit into downtown. And here we have our upcoming split for West 35 and 23 North coming up in a bit. 35 West splits off for Dayton, and 23 North splits off for Columbus. Good signage. Here in Circleville, we are meeting US 22 and Ohio 56, just getting Circleville because we're right next to the downtown. I'd rather see controls for US 22 on there, like Washington Courthouse or Cincinnati, and Lancaster for east, any of those, but still. And here's our next mileage sign. South Bloomfield is on the top line at 9, and Columbus is still holding up on the bottom line at 26 miles. Once we get into the Columbus Metro, we meet with I-270, and it's signed to I-71. I-270 doesn't get any control cities through its run, really. Although when we look off of I-270, US 23 North is just getting a Kentucky treatment of High Street. Although I guess this Kentucky treatment does work because we are going straight into downtown Columbus. And before we get into downtown, North 23 turns to continue on 4th Street northbound because southbound it continues on a different street. I forgot to also mention that we are now concurrent with US 33. And look at that 33 shield, it's plastered with stickers. Once we're in downtown, we meet with US 62, which was actually covered earlier on this channel. And once again, we don't get any controls here since we're just in downtown. Here we meet with I-670. And is signed east to I-71 for airport. Now we leave Columbus city limits and get into Worthington, and look at this. We get Junction, Ohio 161, but look at the shield. It's literally just one of those generic oval shields rather than the state outline. What is this? This is just like Delaware, New Jersey, Kentucky, Iowa, those states all over again. What are you doing? Here we meet with I-270 once again, and it is just getting West 270 and East 272 I-71. And then right up there, we get our west ramp, and we also get a local and express situation. Local is going up through Campus, View Boulevard, and Flint Road, whereas express, we get our pull-through for 23 North, Delaware. Excuse me, ODOT. US 23 doesn't actually go to the state of Delaware. I know that I'm joking by that, but I'd rather see Toledo on there. Here we meet the northern terminus of Ohio 315 Olentangy River Road, and I've been on this road before to get down to Columbus. Here we are in Delaware, and we meet with US 36 and US 42, and they just get a Kentucky treatment of William Street. I'd rather see something else. And 23 North is now getting pulled through for both Marion and Toledo. I'm glad Toledo's on there. That's what I mentioned what should have been there earlier, so that is definitely right there. Although at this exit, of course we're just gonna get a secondary of Marion. I don't like that. Just put Toledo on it. Although the mileage sign does reflect Toledo, of course, at 110 miles away, with Marion and Waldo also making appearances on there. Here we meet with US 30, and it is actually becoming concurrent with us westbound and northbound. Eastbound sign for Bucyrus and Mansfield. Mansfield's okay there. And we just don't get any pull-through here. I do not like that. Put a pull-through. Although when we look on the US 30 side of things, we do get a pull-through for US 23 North and US 30 West for Van Wert and Toledo. Toledo is for US 23 still, and Van Wert is for US 30. Now that's just kind of provincial at this point. I'd rather see Fort Wayne on there. And here is where US 30 splits off, signed west for Van Wert as opposed to Fort Wayne. Here at this interchange, US 23 North is now getting signed for Cary. And that's because we only meet with Ohio 15 there. No, signed Toledo. But of course, Toledo makes the appearance on the mileage sign 67 miles away, with Fostoria and Cary thrown on there. And here's where we split off of the beginning of North Ohio 15, signed 2 I-75 for Findlay and Toledo. And Toledo is actually correct to put on there, because Ohio 15 and I-75 is obviously the faster route to get to Toledo. Meanwhile, US 23 is getting signed for Cary and Fostoria. Fostoria is our next city that's on this sign, so it is a good differentiation. Although the mileage sign still reflects Toledo on the bottom line, after the split it is still right to put it on the bottom line. Well south of Fostoria we meet with US 224, which is getting signed for Findlay and Tiffin. And then somewhere in the middle of nowhere we meet with US 6, which is getting signed for Bowling Green and Fremont. And here you meet with US 20, and we're actually becoming concurrent with westbound 20. And it is signed east for Woodville and Fremont, and meanwhile we're signed for Perrysburg. Where did Toledo go? We should still be seeing Toledo on there. Perrysburg is just a suburb of Toledo. And here is where we meet with Ohio 420, and it's signed to I-280 for Toledo. So I-280 is signed for Toledo and Detroit from the Turnpike, so I feel like I should see Detroit on that sign for some reason. And meanwhile, West 20 and North 23 are getting pulled through for Perrysburg, because of course, 420 to 280 is the faster way to Toledo. And we are going into Perrysburg. Here you meet with I-75, which is getting signed north for Toledo, and it's getting signed south for Dayton and Ann Arbor. Here is our split, with 75 south signed for Dayton, as I just mentioned, and north 475, north 23, and west truck 20 are signed for Maumee and Ann Arbor. While we're on I-475, we meet with US 24, which is getting signed for Napoleon and Maumee. So I do not like the way US 24 is signed in Ohio. It should just be Fort Wayne from here, since this is a fast way to Fort Wayne from here, and Ohio's just doing everything to be provincial on it. And here is our split, with 475 East now signed for Toledo, and 23 North signed for Sylvania and Ann Arbor. Apparently they just don't want to forget the secondaries. And now we cross into my home state, Michigan, and we enter Monroe County right here. Our second exit, but our first route we meet with in Michigan is US 223, a spur of our route, and it's signed for Blissfield and Adrian. Adrian is a good choice to put there. That's where this road is going. Our first mileage sign in Michigan contains Dundee on the top line and Ann Arbor on the bottom line. That is absolutely how it should be. Here we meet with US 12, which is signed for Saline and Ypsilanti, and I-94 is also coming up, getting signed for Detroit and Chicago. And here is the ramp to that, and 23 North is just getting signed for Ann Arbor. At this point, it just seems that they're just favoring the exits that go there, so I wouldn't mind seeing Flint on there as well. Here's the exit to Business 94 and Business 23 for Ann Arbor, and we're actually going to take a detour. we're gonna take this exit right now and drive down Washington Avenue and Stadium Boulevard, because we end up right here in front of Michigan Stadium, our college celebration for today's video, and I just wanted to show the stadium. I've passed it many times, and I'm very familiar with it. We now continue up Main Street, which goes through downtown Ann Arbor, as we can see right here, and now we're gonna get onto M14, which is my home route, and it is also signed to 23, and that's where we'll be continuing. Here's our split for North 23 for Flint, which is where we'll be continuing, and East M14 and South US 23 are signed for Plymouth, and not Toledo on there either. I mean, I'm glad to see Plymouth on there since that's my hometown, but that's just personal for me. And here's our next mileage sign with Brighton on the top line and Flint on the bottom line at 50. Good stuff. Here we meet with I-96 in Brighton, and it's signed east for Detroit and west for Lansing. Good stuff. And 23 is getting quite a small pull-through for Flint. And on our next mileage sign, Fenton is 19 miles away, and Flint is 35 miles away. And now we meet with I-75, and we're becoming concurrent with it northbound for a long time. Here we meet with I-69 in the Flint area, and it's getting signed for Lansing and Port Huron. And now 75 and 23 are getting signed for Saginaw, pretty much the best choice heading northbound from here. And here we meet with the other I-475 of our routes, getting signed south for Flint. And that's right. And here on I-75, we get this mileage sign for Saginaw, Bay City, and Mackinac Bridge. So they really want to favor the tourists and sign Mackinac Bridge since it's a very famous tourist attraction for Michigan, and it's pretty much okay. Here we meet with I-675, which is getting signed north for downtown Saginaw, and now North 75 and 23 are getting signed for Mackinac Bridge, and not Bay City for whatever reason. Mackinac Bridge is probably okay. And here we're crossing over the Saginaw River on the Zilwaukee Bridge, which I've always taken in a good view of. Here we meet with I-675 again, and is signed south for downtown Saginaw once again. And here we are meeting US 10 Eastern, or US 10 Michigan, signed west for Midland, and M25 East is signed for downtown Bay City. Here's one more mileage sign I'll show you on this concurrency with Standish on the top line of 28, which is where we are splitting off. West Branch is signed as well, and Mackinac Bridge on the bottom line is still there. And here is where we split off of I-75 getting signed for Mackinac Bridge. We are getting signed for both Standish and Alpena. And Alpena is pretty good. That is a generally famous city up north. That's pretty much the biggest thing we're going to be coming across for the rest of this route. And here is where we turn onto a roundabout, and we are getting Standish and Alpena still. On the mileage sign, Omer is on the top line at 6, Eau Gray is in the middle at 14, and Alpena is on the bottom line at 99 miles away. Although, of course, Michigan does like to do secondaries, and we just get Eau Gray at one of these intersections. What the heck, MDOT? But of course, Alpena still holds up on the bottom line at 45 miles away on this side, with Harrisville on the top. Here's a look at downtown Alpena. It's a pretty nice town. And now we got another mileage sign with Rogers City, Sheboygan, and Mackinac Bridge. Mackinac Bridge has finally made our way onto this route, and it is 93 miles away. Although, once we're past Sheboygan, we get this one-liner mileage sign. Instead of getting Mackinac Bridge, we get Mackinaw City, which is an actual city, and it's the one on the southern end of the Mackinac Bridge. So I guess that would work too. And here is what the ending of US 23 used to look like. This is a very old street view, and we're getting Mackinac Bridge, Petoskey. Petoskey's getting signed there for US 31, and we're also getting signs for something I can't even see because the street view is like in 2008 or something. And so that will end it for US 23 northbound. Now we're gonna move on to
all the places I'll go on US Highway 23 northbound. So first of all, I'd love to visit the city of Jacksonville, Macon, Atlanta, Clayton, Georgia, because I've been to the North Carolina one. I'd also love to visit Western North Carolina, along with Eastern Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky. And I'd also love to revisit Columbus, and love to visit Toledo, and the cool places up in Michigan, including Ann Arbor, Plymouth to visit Xavier, Flint, Saginaw, and then Mackinaw City and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So that ends US Highway 23 northbound. Thank y'all so much for watching this collab video on US Highway 23. I hope you got to enjoy learning a little bit more about the highway, both in the northern section and the southern section of the highway. So with that, here are my next few highways over the few weeks. If you have any requests for any of these upcoming videos, please put them down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when these videos release. And for the Christmas gimmick video, I'll be accepting stuff up until December 9th, and there's a community post about that. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week in Raleigh.